Hey guys, welcome back to the GameSpot stage at E3 2016. I'm your host, Mary, and I'm delighted to be joined by my co-host, Peter Brown, as well as Hideki Kamiya, creative director at Platinum Games, and translator JP. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Hi.
Now, the first thing we're going to get into here would probably be the gameplay demo that was revealed just a couple days ago, where you guys showed a huge boss fight as well as multiplayer for the very first time.
初公開でマルチプレイヤーとボスファイトを見せてたんですけど。Go ahead.
We were curious of what went into the development process to make the biggest boss fight that has ever happened.
そう今までプラチナゲームズの一番でかいボスはどうやって作ったんですか？
まあとにかく迫力重視して大きくしようっていうのでスケールアップしていって、そこに対してあとそのマルチで戦うっていうところで、ドラゴンが4人集まっても、脅威を感じるようなボスを作ろうっていうことで今回作ってます。
Yeah, so, the first thing that you do is you just decide to keep making it bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it's cool. So we started there, and then we started thinking about, okay, now how do we make this enormous thing work in multiplayer, and how do you fight it together with your friends? So it was kind of a really organic process of taking what we already knew and just scaling it up to be amazing.
Now, you're playing as the lead character, Drew, and your dragon, Thaben. It sounds like they have a really interesting relationship. Could you talk a little bit about the dynamic between those two characters?
ドルーとトゥバンの関係性をちょっと教えてください。
トゥバンは、ドルーは、今まで通り人間サイズのキャラクターで、その、身軽さを生かした戦い方をプレイヤー自身がして、で一緒にこう戦ってくれるドラゴンっていうのはやっぱり強力な攻撃をしてくれる存在ということで、2人がどうやって力を合わせて戦っていくかっていうところが今回のゲーム性になってます。
Yeah, so the most important part of our kind of gameplay mechanic is that up until now in the action games that we've made, you've always been playing kind of a human-sized character fighting against enemies, and you were the only one on screen. But now we've kind of picked Drew, who is an everyman. He's a guy from our world, and he's actually really weak. And we've paired him with a really powerful AI creature in Tuban, the dragon. And so the gameplay mechanic doesn't become, how can I be a superhero every single moment? It becomes, how do I work together with this amazing creature to kind of cover up where I'm weak, but also accentuate where I'm strong?
JP, last time I talked to you, I know you were writing primarily at Platinum Games.
Yeah.
Is that still the case? Are you responsible for sort of Drew's character and who he is?
Actually, I'm not writing on this one.
Okay.
I'm producing the game now.
Oh,
so I'm
wow.
thank you, man.
Yeah.
But we've actually had a really, really cool set of writers on this. So Kamiya has been kind of laying out the flesh and bones of the story.
All right.
And then a lot of the polish passes and work has gone in. We used a guy for a little while named Rich Bryant, who was he's moved on to a really cool project that I can't tell you about at a different company. Oh no, he doesn't actually work for us. This is one of the places where we worked really deeply with Microsoft.
Gotcha.
Rich was one of the writers on Fable 2 and Fable 3. So after that, Rich stepped aside to go take this amazing offer, and God bless him, man, dude's amazingly talented. And Joseph Staten from Bungie, who had worked obviously on Destiny, but basically built the lore for Halo, stepped in and also brought one of his kind of most trusted guys, Clay Carmouche, who did a lot of the writing for The Taken King.
Yeah, so between design, producing, and writing, there's a pretty strong pedigree.
Yeah, we've got really, really strong writers on this, but it's still, at its core, Kamiya's story, so we're staying true to that.
Nice.
Now, going back to the characters and their relationship, it sounds like now you've revealed multiplayer, but do you guys still have a really strong single-player option for people, or are you really kind of leaning more towards multiplayer at this stage?
マルチプレイヤーはあるんですが、シングルでも遊べますか？マルチがメインですか？
いろんなプレイスタイルのユーザーがいると思うので、シングルで遊べるようにという調整も、心がけるんですけど、やっぱりマルチで集まってこそこのスケールバウンドが楽しめると思うので、集まった方がより高い報酬を得られたり、戦闘が楽しめるような、作り方をしたいなって考えています。
Yeah, so we definitely obviously premiered co-op, and we're really excited about that, but we realize that lots of different people want to play games in different ways, and some people want to invest a whole bunch of time in just kind of playing something by themselves and tinkering and tweaking and exploring every corner of the world, and sometimes that's really hard to do in co-op. So we support everything from playing by yourself all the way through the campaign to playing the entire campaign with 3 other people as a group of 4.
Now, when you're playing, you are playing with other Drews, correct? Now, because in the story, you are meant to be this person who's transported into a world. You are the only Drew, and this is the last dragon. How do you come to terms in the story of having 4 Drews and 4 dragons?
4つのドルーと4つのドラゴン出てるって何ですか？
マルチ、このゲームを最初に着想した時からマルチで遊べるゲームにしたいなって考えていて、そうなると、今回はドルっていう特徴的なキャラクターが主人公になって、じゃあその特徴的なキャラクターとその最後の生き残りのドラゴンが4人ずつ4組この世界になんで存在してるのっていうのをこれはゲームだからもうそういうことで楽しんでねって投げっぱなしにしてしまうのはちょっと僕は納得いかなかったんで、そういうドルーが同時に存在するっていうことも説明がつくような世界観っていうのを考えて、でそれをちゃんとシナリオで描いています。今回の映像の一番最後に4人のドルーがボスにとどめを刺すときに最後に一つに重なって攻撃をするっていう、表現をしてるんですけども、それがその世界観のヒントになっていると思うので、皆さん今はいろいろ妄想をいろいろして楽しんでほしいなと思ってます。
So we wanted to make a co-op game from the very start of this project. We were really excited about making a game that you could play through cooperatively, but we also have this really kind of strong personality in Drew and a really strong personality in Tuban, and we wanted to stay true to their story and tell that story of their bond. A lot of times you could just say, okay, there's 4 Drews and there's 4 Tubans because it's a co-op game, it's a video game, deal with it, and be really lame. So we put a lot of effort and a lot of thought into how we could make that concept of a more story-driven, kind of character-driven action game motif work in co-op. And so it's something that we've tied into the story, and even though we're not talking a lot about the story of the game right now, we wanted to give people a little hint, and so there is actually a hint in the gameplay that we showed the other day. At the very end of that video, you see all 4 Drews kind of go up and get ready to kind of put the finishing blow on the boss, and all of a sudden they collapse down into each other, and that's a hint as to how kind of the narrative works for having multiple Drews and multiple Tubans, but still being core to those characters.
That's very interesting. Cool. I'm super curious about that.
すごい興味があります。
そうですね。なので今回ボス戦に絞ってお見せしましたけど、そのボス戦だけでマルチができるってことではなくて、ゲーム全編ストーリーも全部通して協力して遊ぶことができます。
Yeah, and so that's how we pulled off not just having co-op as just being in this mode that maybe you go into a boss fight and then suddenly other people come and help you out, but being able to play that story-driven campaign experience, but in co-op.
I'm pretty curious about the structure of the game overall. Is this something that is perhaps more linear or more open world?
これリニアなゲームなのかオープンワールドなのかどんな感じですか？
これはオープンワールドって
Maybe not wide open world, but you know.
オープンワールドいいよ自分の言葉で伝えてもいいんですよ。We have a big debate always going on in the studio about open world because open world means so many things to so many different people. Like it can be sandbox games, it can be segmented overworld games, it could be like super contiguous open world games. Open world means so many different things to people. We try to avoid saying it.
Sure, I'll clarify my question.
Sure.
Am I going level to level to level, or is this sort of an adventure that gives me a little bit of room to deviate and explore?
そうですね。舞台になる島を自由に冒険することができて、そこでダンジョンを見つけたらダンジョンに入っていって、そこでちょっと挑戦しがいのある敵セットがあって敵を倒していくと一番最後にボスがいてっていうのを広い世界で楽しむゲームですね。一回クリアした後もまた少し戻ってまた同じ冒険をすることもできます。
Yeah, so we want to have a world that's large that you can explore freely. And as you're kind of exploring and fighting enemies, you'll happen upon dungeons, and you'll go into those dungeons and have like really tough challenges there.
Great.
And then come out, but you will be progressing along a story. But even once you finish that story, if you say you want to go back and try that dungeon again, we really want to give people the opportunity to revisit the world and to revisit the different things that they've experienced in the context of that open game.
Do you do a lot of traveling via the dragon? Is he sort of your vehicle in that respect?
ドラゴンは乗り物になるんですか？なんか移動として。
そうですね。今回のデモでもドラゴンに乗って攻撃するところを見せしましたけど、やっぱりああいう人間にはできない機動力のある、キャラクターなので、当然フィールドでも乗って。移動したりっていうこともできるようになるんですけど、まずはストーリーに沿って2人の異なる性格のキャラクタードルーとトゥバンという2人がどう絆を深めていくか。絆が深まったら乗ったりすることもできるでしょうし、攻撃のバリエーションも増えるでしょうし、そういうふうに広がっていくのかなと思っています。
So, obviously we're totally aware, and we're in the same way that we definitely want to hop on a dragon and fly around and move through the world. Like, that's absolutely something that you're going to be able to do, but it's not going to be a given. We want you to kind of come to terms with Tuban. And, you know, if you were somebody who just got suddenly paired with a dragon, how do I relate to this dragon? How do I understand him? How do we even get along before you can hop on his back and say, hey, take me down to the 7-Eleven or something, right? So,
I mean, there's some crazy stuff going on if you're just transported to another world and you have to, like, how did I get here? What, there's dragons? I mean, I'm sure that's going to be a process.
So once you kind of come to terms and become close with Tuban and build that bond, that's when things like dragon riding open up and more attacks and kind of how you combine with each other opens up. So we really want that kind of learning progression in the game.
I'm interested. You sold me.
Now, you mentioned that Drew is kind of like the weak character. He requires the dragon to give him strength, but he does have some skills, does he not? It looks like he had like a scale arm that gave him a few helpful things, like some armor and a few powers. Could you talk about that for a little bit?
完全に弱者ではないですね。まあ腕もあるし、なんか力もある。
そうですね。基本的にはまあそのドルは弱くて、まあこう例えば物陰に隠れてドラゴンと大きい敵の戦いをこうサポートするという戦い方がメインになってくるんですけど、まあ、限られた時間特別なエネルギーを使うことでああいうちょっとこう鎧のような姿に変わって攻撃する瞬間っていうのもありますね。
Yeah, so you know, we view Drew as obviously much smaller and weaker than Tuban in combat, and working together with Tuban is how you're going to kind of overcome things. So there'll be instances where you'll be kind of sending him forward and maybe pulling back a little bit and supporting him from longer distances, or, you know, finding a place to hide and setting up traps. Like, there's lots of different things that you can do in that respect, but that would get really old really quick if that was the only thing that you could do. So we gave him that dragon form mechanic where you have a gauge, and if you press that button, you become kind of one with that dragon and get that full set of skills, and you are now the superhero. And so all of that stress and fear that you've built up being kind of small can be just totally expelled out of your system by just going and smacking the crap out of something because you're in dragon form.
Oh, it sounds so exciting. So it sounds like that's pretty much all we have time for today, and I really appreciate both Hideki Kamiya and JP talking to us about Scalebound. And we do not have a solid release date on this, but I believe we can expect to see it sometime in 2017.
2017, yep.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. And thank you guys for watching. You're not going to want to go anywhere. We have a lot more coming up, so stay right here on GameSpot.